Welcome to Bridge Out Ahead, the podcast where we dig into what's under construction in life, business, and community. I'm Bridger Hopkins, and today is part 2 with Earl Williams from Timbercraft Homes. Today we're going to dive into less about Earl's story and a little bit more into what it takes to build a home, general process, and he's going to share all that with us. So let's dive into it. Welcome back again, Earl. I'm excited about this. This is something that I've not experienced, working with a contractor to build a house, and but my life kind of revolves around houses. So it'll be fun to pick your brain a little bit on this, but really maybe starting out, what, as a contractor, what's your day in, day out look like?
That just it varies so much, job based and what phase of the project a project is in, but usually the first thing I do is check in with the jobs. It's nice to have a baseline for the day on where things are at, where things are going, and what materials are needed. And so whether by phone or actually a site visit, I try to do my best to keep tabs on all of them. Some days I can't check on all of them, but certainly try to keep everything ahead of me. So subcontractors or my guys on the site, I'm trying to check in with those. And then through the middle of the day, it varies, from trying to get some office work done if I can, or moving tools and equipment from job to job, or materials or something. And just interesting where it seems like every day is just a little bit different. So that's the general, I guess. So,
we talked about how you got into building in our last episode. So if you haven't caught that, you should go back and listen to episode 1 with Earl. But so if somebody's going to use your services, what does that process look like?
That's another, it varies from person to person and job to job. Some people come with a fully developed set of plans and specs, and they worked with a designer to pick interior finishes. So it's a full, construction document delivery. More, I would say, have a general idea of what they want, and a partially developed, schema for plans or, general program of a house. Most people know how many bedrooms they want and bathrooms and, 2 or 3 stall garage or whatever that looks like. But so I get involved at some point to help steer that, pair them up with a designer, whether they want a full service architect or, partial, pre-construction and, potential construction management. But help with that. I do budgeting, real broad brush budgeting and line item budgeting to help steer it. Just understanding the cost can drive design quite a bit and selections that are made. So, and then sometimes someone comes in and says, we have no idea what we want, but we are moving from wherever, a lot from the cities, Twin Cities area come up this way. So they just say they want to move north and don't know if they want 2 bedrooms or 5 and what colors are going to look like or what style. So, at that point we just kind of start at the very beginning and try to get a handle on general cost and then design a plan around that. So, a phone call, I get a lot where a client calls me directly, and I get a lot where a designer calls me and says, I have a client who has this, this goal or this project they want to build. And then I kind of work in concert with the designer and what's already been designed. So it can just take on a whole variety of looks. I like to get involved as early as possible in the design. We've had a number where someone comes with a design and typically from a different area, different region, where costs aren't the same. Mm-hmm. Maybe the bigger workforce, which drives down labor cost, or different principles. Maybe people who hurry through a project or I say rush through a project and don't put the care into the project that we would typically, or most of the builders in our area actually are very good builders. So, just trying to educate, a lot of education early on about what our principles are and what our goals are and values and who we are as a company and what we want to deliver at the end of the project. So, So yeah, again, it just so many ways. There's not just one right way, but as early as I can get involved is just a huge benefit for me. But I think for the client as well, and whether that's me or another contractor, I think a client is well served to find a contractor they trust, or they feel like they can trust, or at least build that to the point where they know they can trust, and start in the process.
One thing that's huge, especially starting out with, and this goes with a lot of service-based businesses, but making sure everybody has the same expectations.
Yeah.
People sometimes don't understand the cost. Like somebody doesn't start a tower without knowing the cost, lest they don't complete it and be thought a fool. Right. So knowing fully what the costs are is probably a huge part of it. But I think people a lot of times don't look into their own lives and their own personal values. What do I value in my home or in a home? Because you kind of have to really start thinking specifically. Yeah. Well, do I hang out in my outdoor space on a patio? Do I really like my kitchen? Yeah. Am I always in the living room watching TV? Do I have people over? Do I not? Mm-hmm. Is a lake important to me? Is it not as big of a deal? Do I want to be in town? Some of those are almost a little bit of a, not quite a therapist, but hearing about somebody's life and where they land and what's important to them.
Yeah, for sure. Trying to think of any project or potential project I've had where someone just says, I own a piece of land and I have no idea what to do with it. They generally, whether it was a family piece or, maybe there's a cabin on it already, but the way the natural contours of the land works, give the owner a general idea of how they want to live on that space. We have so many pristine lakes here that, that's a major portion of our work, our lake homes. So, generally people want to build in a way that they can see the lake and so it's a learning process. I love the individuality of our work and how each home is generally tailored to the family specifically. Mm-hmm. I don't think we really build any. I'm not aware of any that we've built where someone said, I'm going to build this home and then sell it in a year. So we're not building for something that's going to work on the real estate market. Yep. That said, we do some spec homes and essentially custom spec homes. But other than that, for any client, we're building something that's going to work for them, their kids, grandkids, or whatever that looks like, the family structure, and how you'd approach building a cabin versus a home. Primary residence is totally different. When the family comes up from wherever they live and they throw their duffel bags in and bags of groceries on the counter, they generally aren't going to be spending a lot of time, making meals in the kitchen. They want to be out on the water, or, on the deck or at the fire pit or whatever that is. So how we approach those things is different too. It's just, there's so many, some people want a traditional home with wood siding, and then the next person wants zero maintenance and something that's contemporary there's so much uniqueness to that.
So once you guys dial in on what a scope of a project is going to be, what's next?
And
maybe one question, even stepping back a little bit, when where does financing fall into this? Is that something that somebody would want to talk to a lender or a bank before talking with you guys, or how does that typically look as well?
I would probably in concert with it. I think I would guess that most people have a pretty good idea of what their borrowing ability is going to be, or if they're going to use financing. Or we get a fair number of people that have cash. Maybe they sold a house that they've owned for a long time and it's increased in value, so they can take the cash from that and put it into a new house. So I think it's wise certainly to understand. I don't like wasting time. I don't have a lot of excess time to waste either. So if someone comes to me and says we have absolutely no idea what we can afford and we want a $5 million house or whatever that number is, the threshold is, I think it's extremely wise to speak with a lender, whether that's, a bank or a mortgage broker, whatever that looks like. So, and then once the general scope is defined, which could just be conceptual or design development type plans with a very low level of finish, selections made, I can put together a general budget. It's not going to be perfect. We're not going to know, exactly how many light switches are in the house, but based on historical costs and something that we have the typical way we build, the type of materials we like to use, I put in a lot of line item allowances, and my spreadsheet, has anywhere from 90 to 150 line items that we're looking at. And of course, there's a lot more pieces to a house than that. So that's still pretty general, even at that level of detail. So at least that puts us in the ballpark of costs. And then at that point, then an owner can say, we can spend more in this area or less in this area. Or we need to cut things, or we can add things. And, we call that value engineering, but may have 1 to 3, maybe even 4 rounds of that before we break ground on a project, just honing in on those exact details to make sure that it works for their budget and their long-term goals. And, so we might have a couple rounds, 2 to 3 rounds of budget pricing and then get to that final price, which we would use for a contract cost. So a lot on the front end, and the more work that can be done on the front end reaps huge rewards down the road. If we think out all those details, it's certainly a lot more cost effective to change things before they're built.
Yeah.
Not to say we can't do changes on the fly in the field, but it's a good benefit to everyone to have it well thought out.
You mentioned value engineering, where you're looking at costs of items or particular features. Mm-hmm. What are the top 3 recommendations you have for people in areas not to cut?
Not to cut. Oh boy. The cheapest time to build, the old adage that the cheapest time to build was yesterday, which I think rings true. And the second cheapest time to build is today. And then it's just going to get more expensive, and materials aren't getting cheaper. The labor resource is getting more scarce. So I'm a big proponent of whatever the grand plan is, get as close as you can to that now. We do a lot where someone wants a basement, but they don't want to pay for it to be finished. And they say, we'll come back in 5 or 10 years and finish the basement. And I would guess a lot of those don't ever get around to finishing the basement. Like my own house, it's a contractor's house, so it's not done. But to get as close to that finish line as you can. So that's not one specific thing not to cut, but a kitchen, we don't typically build for resale value. That's not why we're building homes for clients, but the kitchen is an area which I think is regarded as having a lot of impact on the resale value of a house, and the quality of materials too. I think is an area where it doesn't always. It's not always the fact or the rule that something that costs more is more well made or well built. Certainly, but there are certainly things that are more robustly built, and they're going to stand the test of time. And as a father of 5 kids, and they're in the house, and me and my wife and friends and all that stuff, it just stuff gets beat up. There's a lot of traffic on the floor, and kitchen and cabinet doors get open and closed. So quality of materials to me means a lot from a value standpoint. We've had times where a client will say, we're going to buy cheap light fixtures now just to get the project done, and we'll replace them in 2 years with more expensive fixtures at the time or that time. And if you do the math on that, essentially they're going to be buying 2 fixtures, and they're paying an electrician twice to come back. So it might be cheaper up front, but the value, the return on that investment just it's not logical. So I would say, quality of materials would be high. I would say don't skimp on the kitchen being a big one, or the family areas, kitchen being probably the highest traffic area of a house. And then, just get as close to the finish line of the complete project and how you see living in that house as possible from day one, or, for the initial round, phase 1.
So then flipping that, what are the top 3 areas you recommend people cut when they're trying to stretch their budget?
Trends or fads, the
Barn doors.
Barn doors. I don't know. I kind of like them. They're a little whimsical, I guess. But certain finishes. We can look at a home when we go into existing homes, and based on the color of the trim or casing, you can kind of like get close to what year a house was built. And it was the early 2000s, was the late 90s, was the honey oak, and it was everywhere. I did miles of honey oak, polished brass, and the chrome, and interestingly, chrome was back a couple of years ago, and we were putting chrome in everything. And but thanks to social media, we see a lot of cool ideas, and I love it. I benefit from them all the time. But there are trends that are really maybe a risk, and then they become widely accepted, and then the next year they're completely out. I was just talking to my flooring contractor, and they mentioned last year everything was blue. It had to have some element of blue, like in the tile, and specifically not carpet or wood, thankfully. But this year it's green. So thinking about a tile I wanted to use was green, and he said, I'd caution you, don't go green, because next year it's going to be a different color, and then all of a sudden it's a dated look. So those trends, I think, are risky. Maybe it's what an owner really wants, but I would just be cautious of those as a builder. Other things they should cut, I would discount items. Oh, that's a good one. Like someone tries to stretch $1, which I do the same thing, and they buy the last 3 of a certain light fixture, and one element of that, it doesn't match, or the glass is cracked when you take it out of the box or something like that, and now you have to totally reframe what you're going to do, or what your design criteria is for a light, or whether you have 3 pendants over a kitchen island and one of them's cracked, and you need 3, so then you're buying another round of fixtures or something. So it can be a good way to stretch the dollar, but can be risky. One more thing they should cut. That's 2. I said a lot of things within that. Boy, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what number 3 would be.
And it might depend on the individual too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Once you start talking to people, you might find like, hey, are you sure you really want this huge living room? Because, and obviously that's a little bit earlier on in the design phase, but you sound like you spend all your time outside and you don't have people come and visit you.
Yep.
Some of those lifestyle pairings.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I would have to, that happens a lot with clients. They see something they like, and through conversation, we explore the other options, and maybe there's just other things out there that are a better fit for who they are without them realizing it, because they don't live in it every day, and something they see online that they think they really want, and then when we actually plug it into what the design looks like, it's just not the right fit at all. So that happens a lot. Yeah.
So, as you're gaining more experience, and things seem to be changing overall in how you run business, even having to have a social media presence, what are you guys finding? How are you having to adapt your business currently, either to get clients or maintain clients or have that community about you?
Yeah. One thing that I think social media helps with is, anything we post, we want to be professional to the best of our abilities. A job site's still a job site. There's going to be some garbage, in one garbage can and a pile of scraps in another corner. But historically, every Friday we put the tools down at a certain time and clean, sweep, and chances are good that someone's going to drive by on a boat, or they're going to drive in and snoop around, and the cleanliness of a job speaks a lot to quality and perceived value, and I think real value, but to the onlooker, perceived value certainly. So when the marketing team shows up to take pictures, I'm saying, hey, we need to have everything in line. We don't want stuff leaning up, and especially things, that might be unsafe or maybe even appear unsafe that really aren't, based on your perspective. So that's helped. We've had to adapt to accommodating really unique things that before the internet and, I would say even like Amazon and then social media and Pinterest and houses and all these things, in our small market, we just don't see them. We can't go down to the store and buy these things that are showing up online. So we've had to adapt to sourcing things in unique ways that we wouldn't have done before. For years when a client wanted light fixtures, we'd get a book of catalogs, give them to the client. They would check the boxes on which ones they liked. We'd go get pricing, come back, and it was just a lot of back and forth. And now they can get online and order lights direct. And
they say, we already have them. They're in our garage.
Yeah, they're in the garage, or, plumbing fixtures the same way. So that's made our local market a lot bigger. It's a global thing now because we're sourcing maybe tile from Italy or, wherever it might be coming from, not directly from Italy, but through a distributor, of course. So it can be a challenge at times, but it's sure an opportunity.
Yeah, you can delight your clients even more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
One thing we're seeing too is fewer and fewer people going into the trades. How is that impacting what you guys are doing? Are you able to get seasoned carpenters? Are you making carpenters?
Yeah, both. I think we just this year brought on two, I'll say young now that I'm getting older, but two new people. One comes from a construction background and, from the dirt work side, excavating side, but been around job sites his whole life. The other one just had a passion for working with his hands, actually has a business degree, but has wanted to do carpentry, and both just top-notch individuals and around the same age, around 30. And that's an opportunity I honestly didn't think I would get, just thinking about people who are available, and seasoned carpenters are getting close to retirement, in general, kind of in my way of thinking. So it was a unique opportunity to bring two on within a month of each other, and exciting for sure, but
a different challenge.
Different challenge, yeah, for sure. And one I was excited to embrace, but yeah, the trades are dwindling. And I growing up wanting to build stuff and, build forts and birdhouses and all that stuff, that was just in my DNA, but for whatever reason, that's not maybe a part of everyone's upbringing. So the passion isn't there to work with their hands, and it's hard work. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's at times we're working and it's 10 or 20 below zero, and sometimes it's 90 plus. And some days the work is really fun and easy and comfortable, and the next day you're sweating so hard you need to sit down and grab a drink of water. So it's not easy, but it's rewarding. It's very rewarding, and with the scarcity of that labor resource, we're already seeing there's a pretty good income to be made in the trades for sure, especially the skilled trades, plumbing, electrical, heating, air conditioning, and a lot of sub trades within that. It's a scarce resource for us. We have a great crew, and I'm always looking for the next right guy or gal to bring on, but I'm really happy with where we're at based on the scarcity of how scarce the resource is, the labor resource. So it is a challenge. It'll be interesting to see. I think even in our small town, I would guess in the next 5 years, some of the really, really good residential contractors will be looking at retirement, whether complete retirement or maybe just doing 1 or 2 homes a year. And that'll put a lot more burden on us younger contractors who want to take on that really good quality work. So,
opportunity.
Yep, for sure.
A different challenge.
Yeah. And we can only do so much. And maybe younger carpenters will become available because those older ones will retire. And, that's just the economics of it all. But I love to be able to refer potential clients to other contractors, especially for stuff that, the natural way of things is someone starts building, and then they start building, sheds, and then it's a garage, and then it's an addition, and then it's homes, and There are a couple locally that I refer people to all the time, but there's not a lot, and we need those people to come in enter the market so that they can work their way up to doing custom homes and whatever it might be. So we need them. We need those people.
One other question I had about working with clients in recent years, we're hyper connected.
Yep.
How has communication with clients changed in recent years?
It is. It's a challenge. There's a lot of just transactional communication that happens, like a yes or no answer. That's a quick text message, and the people that don't text are certainly rare. It seems really informal, but it's a really practical way to communicate. Most of my job is just keeping everything going. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I really have to stop what I'm doing, slow down, and then just communicate something to an owner or a designer or sub or whatever that looks like. But a lot of our owners are remote. They're not in this area or they're not living there. So they're only getting glimpses of the project. And that's something I take for granted because I see it every day. Right. I see the progress. I see, hey, the sheetrock is going in. They show up in 2 weeks and realize it's sheetrocked and say, oh boy, it would have been nice to know this. And so it's a struggle because I have my hands to the plow, my crew has their hands to the plow. We're out doing our work, and I think as an owner, it's understandable. They want to know how things are coming and how it's looking and what are the challenges are. We try to answer, solve most of our problems before we present them mm-hmm. to an owner, but to understand what's going on their investment, their big, valuable investment. So I think the immediacy of communication now with texting and email and phone and even social media. Mm-hmm. We have times where a client sees their house posted on social media because we have our marketing team that posts stuff. So kind of cool, but they may not have known in advance that something was done, and they see it on the video. So it requires an immediacy. Certainly there's things that are urgent and some that are important and maybe not both at the same time, but got to be able to communicate that quickly and effectively and thoroughly for sure.
And also having expectations to know, like, hey, we're not going to be live streaming the build of your
right.
Even though we could, right. We're not going to
be
live streaming it, so you see everything.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting. Maybe we're headed that way. I don't know.
But subscribe. It'd be a monthly subscription to watch your house get built.
Right.
Talking a little bit about our specific market up here in northern Minnesota. What are some unique maybe challenges that we face versus some larger metropolitan areas? The
number one, I think, where I would go to is labor availability, labor resource, just the number of people. I think in general, in larger metropolitan areas, it would stand to reason that if you can't find a person to come fix your leaky toilet, you just call the next one. Because there's a lot. Here we have very few of those, and the ones that are good are busy. Mm-hmm. Those like that leaky toilet can't wait. It needs to be fixed now. So we have a limited labor pool of qualified people. I feel like we're kind of on an island a little bit in terms of what we can buy. We can't just go down to the local hardware store and buy specific things that an owner or architect may want in a house. And, so that takes pre-planning, which can be a challenge. Again, it's an opportunity, but, we're in an area where we need inventory. I talk to realtors who say, hey, it's a shortage of inventory to sell, good inventory. And, maybe that's the buyer's expectation for what good or quality looks like. But either way, we have a shortage of homes and we need more. And we have a growing business economy here that's bringing people in. So we need to have that the base of homes for them to look at to buy. So, it's a really cool area to be as a custom home builder, lake home builder. in general that we get to build some really cool stuff because people want to be on the lakes. And maybe another limitation is there's only so much lakeshore too. So
Right.
anything that people are buying is something that already has a home or cabin on it, and we're building something new for them. So
One thing you'd mentioned is your spec homes. How do you guys decide what to build for a spec home when you don't have somebody specific in mind? How do you go to the general?
yeah, we've done. I say we build spec homes like it's a major portion of our work, but we've done two. The first one we did, growing up in Bemidji, I worked for a guy who only built spec homes. And they were generally modular homes on a wood basement. And his goal was to get them out as quick as possible and as cheap as possible with, no thought paid to quality of anything or return on investment or value. Is just punch them out and get them done. And I think he would generally have 9 or 10 going by the end of the summer. And
Wow.
just it was a challenge, real challenge to work for him. My goal was to kind of incrementalize or educate the market on what is out there in terms of a quality built house. It's a unique privilege to, as a homeowner, say we're going to build a home that's custom to what we want. So I wanted to build something that we could put on the market and have buyers walk through it and see, this is what a custom finish looks like, or something built by a quality builder or someone whose goal is to build quality. So we built the first one and priced it at a point where I didn't think it would maybe sell. I knew what I would have into it. At the end, I'd say we broke even on it. It was a good learning experience for me to understand what I would do better on the next one. But it sold, I think we had 5 or I don't recall, 7 showings maybe before the roof was even sheeted.
Yeah.
And we signed a purchase agreement before the roof was sheeted, and then it became semi-custom, kind of this weird hybrid thing where the client said, we want this tile, we want this countertop. So it wasn't even a true spec home at that point. And so it was built kind of customized to what they wanted. And within 11 months of them buying that house, they turned and sold it for $134,000 more than they paid for it. So, it was missed opportunity for me. I don't know what that was. It was a learning experience in that people, quality speaks.
Great feedback to
absolutely.
See it, maybe even realizing people see more value further on
in
the
sure.
process.
Yeah. So, the money piece for me is exciting because it means we can put what we want into a house and not feel that it's as big of a risk as I initially thought it was. Mm-hmm. That one I built kind of on a desperation basis. I had walked away from a house that was a potential for a client, and we just essentially it wasn't the right fit to work with them, and so I walked away and I jumped into a spec house, and like I said, I think I broke even. I maybe don't want to know what it ended up being, but again, the learning, the education piece that came from that was huge. So we're close to within a month of having another house ready to hit the market.
Awesome.
That one is just a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and the plan was to keep it for an office, kind of a conference room for myself, and put a lot of stuff into it that promotes value. Really high efficiency, high performance windows, and the insulation we did was a little bit unique and very efficiently designed with low maintenance finishes. And the more I thought about it, I just decided it makes sense at this time to make it available to the public. So, not everyone wants a 2-bedroom house, 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, and we don't need 50 buyers. We need the one right one.
Yeah.
And I think that quality piece, I know it means a lot. It means a lot to me and to the market, to know someone can get into a house that carries a contractor's warranty the way it should, and should perform really well for a long time before the washing machine breaks or things need maintenance. We have people in this area that want to go south for the winter, so knowing they can leave their home up here and go down there and not have to worry about pipes freezing or whatever that might be, I think speaks. So, we a lot of it comes from what I picture in my mind and what I want to build, and we put on paper and get it built. So we'll be planning to pour a slab for the next one here yet before snow flies, and have that one ready to go in the spring. And I love the creative piece, the design piece. So it's really fun for me to be able to do things that I've wanted to try and maybe couldn't convince an owner to do, or a material to use, or type of window or something. And as long as it falls within the framework of our principles, then we try it, and hopefully it works.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and it gives you that, you can have that little bit of creative touch that you get to leave a mark on too.
Yeah. Yep.
So looking at where things are headed, in say 5 years, what do you hope for Timbercraft?
In 5 years, I would like to think I'm a little smarter, a little better at my job, and much of my job is managing expectations and forecasting expectations or hopes, especially for clients, since we see it every day. I can recommend things, or after enough years in the industry, I'm able to see things just because of my experience that I can help steer clients in a certain way or something. So, I'd love to be better at my job so that my crew, I can empower them or enable them to be better at their job. I still want to be doing exactly what we're doing right now, maybe more of it. I love the challenge of scale and scaling. Yeah. So if we stay where we're at and just still doing that exact thing in 5 years, I don't think I could complain for sure. But I'd love to grow a little bit and put people in place. We were just talking off air about how we just have limited time in a day, and I have a family, and I'm very particular about my crew not working more than 40 hours a week. They have families and hobbies and things to do that don't involve work. So work is necessary, but I would love to be at a point where I can pull back a little bit on some of the things that demand my time and put people in those roles and give them jobs, and that would be a huge benefit to me as a business owner and to the company, because there are a lot of people out there who have skills I don't have, or skills that are complementary to those that I have, that love doing the jobs that maybe I don't thrive on. So where I see us is maybe a little bigger, better. Speaking for myself specifically, there, I'd love to be better at my job, so we can serve clients better, and I can serve my people better, my crew.
And then, real quick, what are 3 things you hope Timbercraft Homes will be known for?
3 things: integrity. The principles we carry. When clients trust us, not just me, but us, my crew that they see on the job day in and day out. I want those principles of integrity to carry us, be really what carries us as a business. Quality, for sure. That those little touches, those things that make a home a quality home, and the list is too long to even start on here. But when we miss the boat on those, maybe we, whatever, something happened and we don't nail that thing. That can be the one thing that someone looks at for the life of the home. Yeah. And as silly as it sounds, that means a lot. I think that means a lot. So we're not always going to get everything perfect, but to strive for that and learn. And then that learning, or the continuous improvement piece, that's really big to me. Even if we think we're doing everything as well as we possibly can, I guarantee we can do it better. So, just practice and learning and talking to people and studying how things are done, how business is done, how homes are built, and the energy climate is ever changing. So the way we build houses now compared to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever that was, general principles apply. Insulation and vapor barriers or vapor retarders and control layers, all this stuff applies, but there's ever materials coming to the market that change how we would build. So then we have to constantly evaluate how a wall assembly is built and how a roof assembly is built and the foundation and the heating system. And so yeah, to really nail those pieces, that integrity, the quality, and the continuous learning piece, I think would be big.
Huge. So just wrapping up here, we're to the toolbox takeaway section, and really just looking for the one piece of advice you'd give to somebody who says, I want to build a home.
I would say, maybe not a piece of advice, but the question would be why? And the reason is, I'm big on figuring out the why, whether 3 levels deep, there's all these, I've heard 7 levels deep, the reason for doing something, but it's a huge investment, financially, emotionally. We joke around with clients that, generally husband and wife or, the owners don't agree on something small and they say, well, what do you think? And I always tell them, I'm a builder and counseling costs extra. And
yeah.
But it's a truth that it's an incredibly stressful endeavor. It's a long thing, from start to finish. It's a journey, and if it's just to say we built a house, that's probably not a good reason. Mm-hmm. For coming from my standpoint, maybe someone else is totally different in that. But find a reason why, or make sure you know why, because it's a taxing thing. And at the end, hopefully the reward is worth it, and you get a new custom home that's well built by really skilled people, and it fits the family. But the journey to get there can be challenging. So, yeah.
Cool. That's a great bit of advice. Well, with that, Earl, we really appreciate your time. And where can people follow you guys and see what you're doing, or if they want to have a house built?
Yeah. So our website is timbercraftmn.com. We're on Instagram. Timbercraftmn is the handle. Facebook, and houses, I believe. I'm not a technology guy, but I know we're out there on a few platforms, and contact info is on the website. Earl at timbercraftmn.com is my email address, and I'd love to get an email or have a phone call, and if nothing else, just to help people along the way. And we have a pool of really great local contractors too, and I know I can't take every job, so we benefit from that. So there's a few of us around here that like to build really good stuff. So I'd love to hear from people.
Awesome. Thanks again for sticking around for this, Earl. And you guys should go follow them and see what they're doing. This episode of Bridge Out Ahead is brought to you by Legacy Bridge Real Estate, brokered by Grand Properties. At Legacy Bridge, we believe real estate is one of the most powerful ways to build wealth. More importantly, to build your legacy. Whether you're buying your first home, selling a property, or looking to invest, our trusted team is here to walk with you every step of the way. Legacy Bridge Real Estate, where legacies begin. Today's theme music is We're Making Good Time by Jed LaPlante. Thanks for joining us today. And remember, no matter the detour you encounter, the road ahead is still yours to build. I'm Bridger Hopkins, and this is Bridge Out Ahead.